You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 149. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how life with less alcohol is more fun than you think. I work with high achievers who struggle to drink a glass of wine without it turning into 2 bottles. I'm the one they call when they want to take it or leave it. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol that doesn't involve counting days sober, you're in the right place. Hello everybody and welcome back to the podcast. It is lovely to have you here with me. Alright, so today I'm going to start a little bit differently. We're going to start by playing a little imagination game. And I want you to follow along with this, even if you're driving your car or whether you're listening to the podcast while you're preparing dinner or on a run or whatever. So I want you to imagine what it would be like if you were to do everything that you committed that you were going to do. So the process is you would create a goal, you'd write down the steps, you'd follow the steps, and you would repeat this every single time. For every single goal. Right? Now, you might actually do this in your work life and in many areas of your personal life. So now I want you to think about, just imagine if you did this regarding drinking too. I want you to imagine what it would be like to only drink when you planned on drinking. I want you to imagine what it would be like to know for sure that you're not going to care if people see you drinking or not. I want you to know what it would be like, or imagine what it would be like if you were to go to a dinner party and you just stick to fizzy water and people are trying to ply you with drink and it wouldn't affect your enjoyment of the evening at all. What would it be like to show up for yourself in that way, even if you were afraid? What would it be like to decide that you're no longer going to tolerate certain people and certain events in your life because you have no time for that, right? If you always feel like you've got to drink to get through a certain engagement, that maybe you just don't have that engagement in your life anymore. Or even if you have that engagement in your life that you don't need to drink your way through it. Just imagine, what would that be like? And then ask, what would your relationship be like with yourself? What would it like to be no longer judging yourself or fearing yourself or wondering if alcohol was going to trigger you or someone's going to make you feel bad and you were going to drink, right? I want you to paint a picture of that life for yourself. Now, when you do this, when I have people do this, most of the time after they've done that, I then say, so what was that like? And most people will say, that would be amazing, Anna. I would love to do that. And then they might hot shoe it from that to, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to get serious. I'm really just going to decide. Now is my time. I'm just going to stop mucking around. I'm going to do it. And then what happens is we move into the regime of willpower. And I want to think about this, that most people believe that sheer willpower or force can get them to where they want to be. And if you are a driven person, this might seem very familiar, and in fact, this approach may have worked in various areas of your life for years. I know that. I know that to be the case because it's how I spoke to myself for years. Come on, Anna, we're just going to do this, right? And we're just going to do this. And it worked for so long for so many things, but never did for the wine. And I never seemed to learn, which is okay. I forgive past Anna. But what I did find was that there just was never enough willpower in the world. I mean, there never was. I was just not strong enough to sustain that type of force for year after year after year. And most people are not. My clients certainly aren't. And that's fine. Because what I learned is that forcing yourself to do something is totally different than having the power to do something. And on the outside looking in, we might actually think that power and force are synonyms. But there is a whole world of difference between them. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Power versus force. So let's tackle force first. Force is when you're forcing yourself to do something. That is very different to having the power to do something. When we're using force, that's for sure we're using willpower, and it all feels very hard and harsh. And our language might feel hard and harsh, right? We battle habits. We fight cravings. We push away urges. And a lot of our mindset and a lot of our language is things like, I can just push through this. I will resist temptation. I will be strict and just not give in. I'm going to pull on my big girl pants and I'm going to do it. I just have to get through the day. And this can be okay. This approach can work for certain things in your life that are short-lived and, I always say tasks, things that you just don't want to do, like cleaning the terrace. I don't like cleaning the terrace. We have a bit of a terrace. It gets very dusty. Ugh. One of those things. But I can push myself through it. I can force myself to do it. And it's short-lived, and it's sort of a one-off every however many months, and that is fine. But when we are using this kind of willpower force as an element in our daily life, that's when it becomes unsustainable. It is a finite resource. I often talk about that it's like a bottle of water when you go out for a hike or a walk. Quite a full bottle of water in the beginning of the day. You're going to take sips from it as you go through the day, and you are likely to end up with less at the end of the day than you began with, right? It's just going to happen. Think about your battery on your phone if you're not in a position to charge it. As you go through the day, you can sort of see that battery number going down and down and down and sort of depletes and depletes and depletes. And maybe there's this task, there's something you've got to do at the end of the day. You've got to have a specific call, or you've got to be able to use your GPS or whatever it is. And when you get to that point, and that's when you need your battery, you might be all out because you've been depleting it and using it all day. Willpower is a similar thing. And willpower relies on us being on sort of a level of resistance, on a battle. It is not peace and it is not calm. It's all about taking away, right? We're just taking away. We're depleting the energy. We're depleting the resource. This is the thing that leads to feelings of failure. This is what leads to us feeling like, I'm just so useless. Just why can't I battle through this? And this is when we get into this cycle of guilt and shame, right? Because we're trying to force yourself. You're trying to force yourself to do something you don't want to do, but you think you should be able to do it. And by the way, everybody else around you seems to be able to do it. And then when you force yourself and then you fail, number of reasons why that happens, but you fail and then you feel shame. And then you feel guilt, and then you feel awful, and then you sort of lose a little bit of confidence, and then it kind of goes round in this circle. So that's where force just does not work over the long term. But that's okay, because we can lean into power instead. As we think of girl power from the Spice Girls back in the 90s. Yes, I am showing my age. I did enjoy the music of the Spice Girls. Now, power comes from, I believe, a different place. It comes from a sense of self-trust. It comes from a sense of capability, of confidence, of alignment with your deeper values, if you want to get a bit woo, right? It is not about resistance. It is about empowerment. I want you to think about those two concepts. Power is much more enduring than force because it's built on a solid foundation. It's built on a foundation of self-understanding, of commitment and compassion. So let's look at the main components that I see as they're being part of power. Firstly, self-trust. This is incredibly powerful when we have this. This is simply the ability to make a decision and follow through because you trust yourself to, not because you are forcing yourself to. Think about how that feels, the difference there. Another element of power is, as I said, this alignment with values. It comes from knowing why you want to change. Why do you want to change your drinking habits? And then aligning your actions and how you're going to think about situations from that deeper why. Right? So this is because this is a choice we're making. This isn't because you're having to force yourself because you're a terrible person. No. And then the third, and probably what the most important element of when it comes to power and empowerment, is this concept of self-compassion. You're acknowledging who you are. I'm human, right? And I can be kind to myself even when I stumble. I can be kind to myself even when everything seems to be going wrong. I can recognize that mistakes aren't going to derail the process I'm making because I'm not fighting myself. I'm in it with me. This is not, I don't have two versions of Anna. We're not battling Anna. Anna, future Anna, and current Anna are in this together. And having taken you through the difference between force and power, I want you to consider and want to offer that the way we unwind our relationship with alcohol is with power. It is not with force. If we stick in the area of power, we do not need to go to force. And if you find yourself moving back into force, which you might do, if we've been using willpower for years and all the message boards and everyone will say, just got to have a lot of willpower. Or if you go that way, just remind yourself you can do this through power and empowerment. And I want you to think about the word power. Actually, I mean, when I think about it, it really makes me feel empowered. And how does feeling empowered feel to you? I mean, what does that mean to you? For me, it's about feeling strong, even if I'm scared, even if I'm uncomfortable. But it's a kind of light and caring strength, right? It's about, I know that I'm looking after myself. I know I'm moving in the right direction. I could be a long way from my goal, but I can see I'm actually on the road. Even if it seems rather circuitous, I'm moving in that direction and I'm going to get there. It's about knowing that we're not pushing ourselves and we're not avoiding, right? We're not lying to ourselves anymore. We're not kind of pretending that if we just are a bit stronger and we just did this, whatever, that we'll get there. No, we're kind of just accepting this is where I am, but I can lean into me in order to get to where I want to be. This is so important because when we lean into power and this idea of acceptance and really seeing the truth for ourselves, we get out of what I call the hamster wheel cycles. And I used to be in one of those for a very long time. Now, we talk about being on the hamster wheel for many elements of our life. And let me just outline how I see this when it comes to drinking specifically. So what happens is, and I speak to many people who find themselves on this hamster wheel and they just want to get off, but the wheel is still spinning. So what happens is you decide you want to drink less, for example, right? So you set out a goal to do that, whatever that means. Whether that means you want to abstain for good, cut back a bit here and there, just take a break for a few days, whatever it is. So we have the goal. And it might be, and it often is, the same goal we've had maybe on repeat for years. But see, the thing is, you, at that point when we make that decision, nothing has else really changed. You don't know how to manage your cravings around wine, perhaps. You don't know how to feel your emotions. You don't know how to plan in a way that supports you, right? There's many missing gaps in terms, and these are skills, people, right? These are skills that we can learn. So we kind of have this, we have set the goal, but then we have this huge skills gap. And of course, at the same time that nothing has really changed because we have this skills gap, we are still sitting there thinking, well, I should be able to do this. I mean, it's just not drinking the wine. I mean, that's all it is. This is not rocket science. This isn't writing a presentation and reporting to CEO staff. This isn't standing in front of 10,000 reseller partners and explaining what the new support contract is. This is not sitting in front of, being on a sales call. This is not all these hard things that we're able to do. This is just deciding that I'm not going to drink 2 glasses of wine tonight. I mean, really, Anna, what on earth is so hard about that? And I work with, and I see, so that was how I saw it in myself. And I see this in my clients. I work with clients who do amazing things in their lives, from being performers in front of thousands of people. I work with senior leaders in corporations. I work with people who have responsible positions in their communities. I have people who are just fantastic role models. They have this amazing families. And then they think, why can't I just drink a couple of glasses of wine and call that good? What is up with that? Right, so if that is you, I want you to think, if you don't have the skills after you've made this decision, nothing has really changed. And then what happens is, by and large, if we're just doing the same things because we don't have the skills, so if we don't know how to do it, we're just going to do what we've done before and kind of hope for the best. And so what you do is you end up over drinking because you're going to restrict yourself too much. You're going to say, well, I've just got to be really strong and restrict. I'm going to force myself to do this. And then what happens then is you end up over drinking. And often you end up drinking more than you were before, okay? Because we sort of overcompensate. And then you find that you now need to drink it's even more that you've got to drink less, right? So you're drinking more than before. So maybe before you just wanted to cut out a couple of glasses and that, and now it's like a bottle a night, right? Because it's gone up. How did that happen? I was trying to be really good, and now I'm faced with an even worse situation. And we don't like how that feels. We want to avoid that situation. We want to hide from it. We want to push it away, and we hate ourselves because I'm doing this, and why am I doing this? I'm even trying, and now it's even worse. I feel like I have no self-control. So we drink more. And then we think we are never going to break out of this cycle until maybe, a few months' time where we sort of go through the whole thing again. I'm just going to be really strong. I'm going to force myself to do this. And what's happening here is you're relying on force. That is not sustainable. It just isn't sustainable. So everything kind of falls apart, and then we feel ashamed about that. And when we feel ashamed, we then start drinking again, right? Because then the drink, we think, solves the shame, makes us feel better in the moment. So let me give you some practical ways, some practical shifts. If you sense that you're in force, so that's the first thing I would like to have you do. Are you sitting in force or you're sitting in power, right, with your approach? And if you're in the area of force, to break that hamster wheel, I want you to make a conscious decision. We're going to focus on power, which involves things like understanding why you're stuck in the first place. It involves learning the right skills. Learning the new skills that you need around cravings, for instance. There's a whole element of things I teach there, right? And this all involves then, as we move into power, to slowly trusting yourself. Simple things you can do, simple mindset shifts. Instead of saying, I have to stop drinking, I'm choosing to not drink because I value, whatever this is. And even if oh, yeah, I know, I've got to say I choose. Really do this. How does saying you choose and recognizing and believing yourself that it's a choice, how different does that feel? When we're in the area of power, this involves learning skills to regulate and handle our emotions. This is when we're learning how to handle triggers and cues. This is how we learn how to plan our decisions around drinking ahead of time. Right? We're not sort of just reacting in the moment. And when we do all of these things, it starts to stack up. We start to create new habits. There is the habit of drinking too much, but that is built on many other habits. And over time, as we start to disassemble and dismantle those habits, so then we create new habits of not drinking so much. And habits are formed through consistency, and to focus on long-term goals, not through short bursts of willpower. Not, I'm just going to get through this, right? Because that is exhausting. I had a client once who wanted to do this, and they felt very on edge and very triggered when they were out with other people. And the way they solved that was to avoid going out with these other people. Right? But then eventually, because these were good friends, eventually there would come a time when, they really, really want to be out with them, whatever that event was for. And of course, they had no coping skills because the only way they had been coping was to avoid the situation. So then when they're face to face, they're with the people and there's all the drinks. So not only do they not have the skills, have they not been teaching themselves the skills to deal with that scenario, they also had were talking to themselves in a way, well, this is going to be, a disaster here because this is what you always do when you're in this situation. There was no sense of capability and there was no sense of confidence. So it's the what we want to learn and how we deploy it that's going to get us to our goal. All right, so things I teach are things around planning and how we plan and how we stick to that. There's an art to that. I teach things like learning how to feel your emotions. You need to be able to feel your emotions and to be looking at the triggers and everything that's going on and not running from it. Like I say, there are skills to this. And the more we do this, we build up these habits and then we start to feel more empowered. And then we really are sitting in the empowerment camp. It might not always feel super comfortable, but that's a lot better than feeling right in the sort of in battle land over in the forcing. So as you listen to this, some homework, I like homework, that I would set you is I want you to identify areas in your life where you are currently feeling forced and feeling drained. And by the way, this might not just be in drinking. This might be in other areas of your life. And that in itself can be a big aha moment because we see that, I can see actually where this sort of fight my way through it to change my behavior is not working, not just in drinking. But then when it comes to drinking, I want you to consider, why do you want to drink less or abstain completely, whatever your goal is. And what does that mean for you? How does that align with how you see yourself? How does that align with the power that you know that is within you, with the capability that you know is within you? And how can you look to prove that to yourself? As you do this, as you go through changing your relationship and transforming how you drink, I want you to see that change is possible, but it's not going to come from willpower alone. I mean, it really will not. It might work for short bursts of time, but it won't work over the long term. Instead, go towards looking how you can trust yourself. That's what is going to work. And if you look at how you view yourself, what values you have, and how you want to show up for yourself, that's going to make a difference. So in summary, force is relying on willpower and resistance, and that is unsustainable. Whereas power comes from self-trust, alignment with your values, and big doses of self-compassion. Do the homework that I offered just now. Look at how you could shift into the area of power. Just play with that for a little bit. It feels so different. And if you're thinking, I want to do that, but I don't know how, and I want these skills and I want them now, oh gosh, I'm a poet and don't know it, then I can help. This is what I do. I talk with people day in, day out, people like you. I do not treat you as some addict who has no hope. This is all about having a behavior that you want to change, a habit that you want to change. I will show you the miracle of how you can make that change for yourself. You can decide ahead of time and then you can follow through on yourself. And if that is what you want, I want you to book a call with me. I speak with all my clients first, and I do that. It's a free call, and I do this to make sure that we're a good fit. And what I will do on the call is I will actually build for you the exact path to get you to your goal. And then it's really for you to decide if that's what you want for yourself. And by the way, it is fun. One of the things I hear from my clients repeatedly is obviously they come to me to change their relationship with alcohol, but they end up learning and changing their relationship with themselves for the better. So do that. Reach out. Have that call. And if you want an even bigger incentive as to why now is the right time, I have 5 spots that I'm opening up over the next week where I'm offering a really generous payment plan, 6-month payment plan, because I want to make my coaching as accessible as possible to as many people. So if you're worried, I don't think I could afford it, I couldn't afford to pay all that at once, you will not have to. And this is a limited time offer for the next week. So go to 90dayslater.co and book a call there, or you can email me, anna@90dayslater.co. And I will leave you, lovely listeners, with this one closing thought. What would it look like if you stopped forcing yourself to change and instead used the power that is already inside of you? I will see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.